scared of whatever's going on. But at the end of every single dance class, we would all hold hands and we would say, "Dear God, thank you for our dance class. Amen." And I just remember like loving that community of people. I always felt so supported. And so I did not come from a family that, wasn't there for me or didn't support me. But this all being said, my lack of kind of spirituality at home, I think, is what led to my parents' divorce when I was 13. So let's recap. In the Catholic faith, you choose to get confirmed when you're 13. So confirmation is like dedicating your life to Catholicism. Like, I choose for the rest of my life to be a Catholic. And it's kind of like, I would almost say like a second baptism. You're just not in the water. You're just like, this is me dedicating my life to Catholicism. I chose not to do that at 13. So, number one, I choose not to get confirmed. Number two, my parents decide to separate when I turned 13. And number three, the Christian dance studio that I loved decided to close. So all of these things were really hard for me. And of course, at the ripe age of 13, when we all know everything and our lives are all under control, mine felt like it was completely falling apart. And I had lost my identity in my family. I had lost my identity in my faith. And I had lost my identity in something I loved to do, which was dance. So now that we're where we're at, let's talk a little bit about let's get into detail. So, my parents, I love them dearly, and they raised me very well. I think that the woman I am today, they get credit because they really did the best that they could. But it was weird to experience living almost all of my childhood. I mean, I was about to go into high school with married parents. And my parents always showed us that they loved each other, and I thought that they did a great job. And just one of the issues was when they would argue in front of us, we would never see a resolution. And so I think that those kind of things and the kind of barriers they put between us and them really disconnected me from my parents. But at the same time, during all of this, I took it upon myself to postpone my own grieving because I wanted to be there for my brothers, which these are my two little brothers, Brooks and Graham. Sorry to call you guys out. No, you're not really into that, but it's okay. And I have an older brother named Rory. He was out of the house at this point. But as the older sister, I wanted to be there for everybody. I wanted to be there for my mom, for my dad, for Brooks and Graham, which oddly enough, this was my prime time of being a horrible person. I think that I was just rude, and they can attest to this. I was kind of a bully, seriously, and I regret it, obviously. I mean, who's like, I'm a bully and I'm proud? Nobody, but it was definitely this period of my life where I was just super aggressive and outspoken, not in a good way. But that being said, strangely enough, this was the time in my life when I had the most friends. Like, everybody wanted to be my friend, and I thought it was so weird because I was so mean. But now when I look back at it, I'm like, I know, right? I'm like, now when I look back on it, everybody wanted to be your friends, so you weren't mean to them. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. So, in this time of me showing my, angsty teen moments, I was very depressed. I'm going to get emotional, so please don't make this really awkward and quiet. If I still say something funny, please laugh, because I don't want this to get super weird. But I did. I fell into a deep depression, and there were a lot of times where I felt like if I wasn't in the equation, would my parents be able to handle things? Would my brothers be able to, move on and overcome this challenge? Because when you think about it, my parents separate when I'm 13, but my little brother Graham was only like 4. So he's going to grow up with parents that are separated. And these things that I felt like I should be able to control were really putting me in this place of, you're useless. there's nothing you can do to make anybody feel any better. And that is hard for me because all I wanted to do was be there for them. And I'm so sorry. And support them and just be somebody, be this rock, because my parents were in shambles. And I wanted to be a rock. I wanted to be the one thing where it's like they knew that I was going to be okay and I could handle it. And so that was kind of my motto, like, I can handle it. It's not a big deal. I can handle it. Ask me to do it, whatever. So as the divorce went on, it took about a year. So if your parents are separated, divorces can be a lengthy process, and my parents actually finalized their divorce the week of my 14th birthday. So birthdays were hard for a while because I just didn't want to remember that awful feeling of remembering that point in my life. But anyway, continuing on. During this time of me kind of pulling to take care of my brothers, pulling to take care of my mom, pulling to take care of my dad, all while experiencing this intense depression, is when I felt the presence of God for the very, very first time. And it was, like I talked about earlier, the night Lisa gave her beautiful testimony. And I just remember, before she even shared, we were doing worship, and they were singing this song called Egypt. The one that's released now is different. I'm pro old Egypt. Bring it back. Bring it back. But I just remember, like, this was before I understood, like, the freedom in worship. And so I would just kind of stand there, and I would mumble the songs because we all go through that awkward phase where you're like, I don't really want to move. But I just remember my body getting super hot, and I was feeling really nauseous, and I was like, am I about to throw up? I didn't throw up, so if you ever feel that, don't freak, but if you're going to throw up, the bathroom's back there. But it felt like somebody, like, this warmth on my body, and then it felt like somebody took their hands and put their hands on my shoulders and sat me down. And I literally sat down, like, I was like, boom. And I was like, what just happened to me? And then I just felt this overwhelming peace. And I heard somebody say, it's over. You have to let it go. And I wish I could say, like, it was over. I wasn't depressed anymore. I didn't have any more anxiety. My parents resolved their issues, but it wasn't like that. And I think it wasn't like that because I chose not to let it go. But that being said, that moment was so pivotal for me, experiencing the genuine presence and overwhelming love and protection. All I wanted was to feel protected by the Lord. And that's exactly what he did. It felt like this just huge sweaty hug. And I was like, yes, this is what I've been looking for. And so that was the first time I had experienced the presence of God in church. Let's talk about outside of church because it's not as pretty. And I think it's important that I share this with you because this was hard for me. I remember it was, let me preface before I get into this. I live with my mom full time. I stopped going to my dad because he moved. He lived about 30 minutes away, and I was still traveling to school. And so I was like, this is a little difficult for me. I'm really busy. I'm like involved in every club you can think of. I've just got a lot going on. And I wanted to come to church every Sunday, so I was like, I really don't know if that's my gig. But my dad, when my parents had separated, fell back into an alcohol addiction, which he still struggles with. So if that is on your heart to pray for him, please do. I pray for him, and I know that he would appreciate that. But we're not going to go into too much detail about that because everybody's on their own life path, and it happens. But my dad had fallen back into his addiction, and my mom had a new boyfriend every couple of months. So I was experiencing a lot of stuff, which I explained earlier, but it's fine. So anyway, the first time I had felt the presence of the Lord outside of church, I was in my bathtub because, and Sorry. I was in my bathtub, and I didn't really understand like praying, or like people don't really explain like this is how you pray, because it's not really like that. Everybody has their own way of doing it, and mine is talking out loud like a crazy person in my bathtub. So I'm in my bathtub and I'm just kind of venting to what I thought was nobody. Obviously the Lord's always listening, so I think that's important, we know that. But I'm just like talking to myself. I'm like, this is crazy. My life is crazy. My parents are getting divorced. I don't know how to do anything on my own, but I so badly wanted to. And just imagine me, I'm bawling, crying, okay? I'm just sobbing everywhere. And for a moment, I think that I wonder if the water is deep enough for me to just calmly go. And then I think about my parents and my brothers and what would happen if somebody found me. And then it happened again. I felt this overwhelming warmth and this overwhelming sense of being protected and held and loved. And I just remember him telling me, it's over. You have to let it go. And I just remember this was so hard for me, because it felt like the only thing I was holding on to was this sense of pride. Like, I can handle it. I don't need anybody to help me. I can do it by myself, which is totally not true. But this moment, thank you so much. Yes, I knew I should have grabbed tissues and I totally forgot. But this moment was so important for me, because it made me realize that at the end of the day, that deep, deep thing inside of us will always try to do the worst. And it was so, I don't know, it was just a moment. So I experienced the Lord in my bathtub, and I'm like, okay, it's time to get serious about this whole letting go deal. And so I meet my sweet boyfriend, Carson. He's in the back. Hey, it's good to see you. Hope you're feeling better. I'm glad you're here. It's good to see you. Anyway, so I was also at the age of 13 when I met Carson. And we had been, I was coming to youth group for about a year. And I was like, yes, I love youth group. And Carson was super cool, and we would hang out like once a month. And then his parents sat him down and they were like, listen, if this is going to get serious, she has to come to church. And I was like, Carson told me this, and I was like, okay, like, I don't care. I always, like, thought that I was pretty open-minded, so I was open to the idea of coming to church. Like I said, I had left the Catholic faith, so I didn't really have this, like, Christian ground where I could go and meet people and whatever, because the dance studio had closed as well. So I was like, let's do it. Little did I know, I get to the church, and I'm like, where's Carson? And he's sitting in the front row, and I'm like, whoa, front row? I'm like, I'm a third or fourth row kind of gal. I don't know, I'm like, I need a little bit of distance. But I'm like, it's fine, like, what's going to happen? Is somebody going to come up here and be like, you can't sit up here? Like, it's not a big deal. So I sit down, and I put my little purse down, and worship starts, and I'm like, yes, I love worship. Like, this is so good. And it was amazing, and I was like, yes. And all of a sudden, his mom gets up, and she starts walking on stage, and I'm like, what is going on? And she starts praying. She gives this beautiful prayer. I don't remember what it is, because I'm in shock that I just saw, this guy that I'm hanging out with, his mom just walk up on stage, and I'm like, whoa. And so this all goes down. She comes down. She's like, greet each other. And I'm like, okay, good morning. What's going on? And then all of a sudden, his dad walks up on stage. And I'm like, what is going on? And so, long story short, this is how I found out I was dating a pastor's kid. So if you're dating another Christian man, maybe ask the question, are you a pastor's kid? Because it was definitely a shock to my system. And I was like, wow, this is the last thing I expected to come into today. But it's great. Look where we are now, 5 years later, and we're still going strong. And, they haven't asked me to take over the church yet, so everything's good. Anyway. All fun and games. Let's get a little more serious. So Carson and I are dating, and as I said, John and Lisa said, if this is going to be serious, she's got to come to church. So my initial kind of, I go to church so I can date my boyfriend. You know what I mean? It's kind of like I'm going to church so that I can get to know him and his family more. That's what I go to church for. And I realized not quickly that I was starting to put my identity in my boyfriend, and he became this like Christ-like figure to me because he was there for me during my parents' divorce. He was there for me when the studio closed. He was there for me when I left the Catholic faith. He was there for me through all of these things. And so that is what I associated with he saved me from these things. He saved me from this sadness. He saved me from this anxiety. And I, accredited that, all those things to him. And I'm not going to lie, guys. It was only about 2 years ago that I realized this is not right. Because obviously when you're in a relationship, you get to know your partner more, and things become more serious, and there are challenges you face as a Christian couple that it's like you have to overcome them. And there's been a lot of periods in our relationship where we had to be distant from each other, and that was my worst nightmare. I was like, I cannot be apart from him. I cannot be apart from him. That's horrible for me. I would be a total wreck, because remember, I'm this 13-year-old girl whose parents just divorced. I have nothing. My dad has fallen back into his addiction, so my father figure idea is in shambles. I don't really have a father figure in my life. And so, as I said, Carson becomes my church. And the realization of this took multiple people kind of confronting it. I did not want to confront it myself because I think a part of me knew that that's what was happening to me, but it's different when somebody tells you like, hey, I think you guys, spend a little bit too much time together. Every story I told was me and Carson did this. Me and Carson are going here. Me and Carson's family are doing this, because they were this rock that I had that I knew I could always rely on. But as we became more serious, I realized that, obviously our home lives were different. We had different groups of friends. We had different morals. There were things that I believed that he didn't, that he believed that I didn't. And we faced all of these challenges that we would have to overcome. And we became closer because of them. But I had to realize on my own that my true rock cannot be anybody but Jesus. And I'm not going to sit here and say I had one moment in my life where I was like, yes, Jesus, you're my rock, and nobody else is my rock, because it wasn't like that for me. For me, it wasn't giving my life to Christ one time. I can't, tell you the date and time and where I was when it happened, because I've had to do it over and over and over again. I've had to learn to let go over and over and over again. And letting go of Carson was one of the hardest things I had to do. And I think a lot of people thought that me letting go of Carson would be breaking us up. And, although we've had points in our relationship where we've thought about that, that was never what I wanted, because that's where he met me, was my parents just broke up. And I didn't want that. I had to learn to create that separation of Christ and Carson on my own. He couldn't do that for me. My parents couldn't do that for me. John and Lisa couldn't do that for me. The only person that could do that was me and Jesus. And so, this is something I'm still going through, and something I'm still processing through. And I think that it's important that I share that with you guys, because I'm not going to sit here and say that my life is perfect and I've done everything right and I'm on this path where it's just me and Jesus for life. Like, obviously it is, but a part of me still wants these other people, and I'm still holding on to these things, and it's hard for me to let them go. So, I want to share a few verses with you guys that have really impacted me, as just like reminders to let go and understand that I can be my own individual and have all these friends and have this nice family and have these people that support me without having them be my church. I have to create that separation, and I have to do it every day. So the first one is Hebrews 3:8. Don't harden your hearts as Israel did when they rebelled, when they tested me in the wilderness. I have to remind myself not to harden my heart to the Lord every single day. every single day. And some days it's hard. I'm not going to lie. Some days my heart is hard to the Lord, and I'm like, Lord, seriously? You're asking me to talk to this random lady in the grocery store? I really don't feel like it. Like, we've all been there, and it's literally drawn on my mirror. I remember writing it on my mirror when I was 14 years old. I was like, girl, you better not harden your heart. Like, and, there are still days when that happens, and that's okay. And the next one is pretty popular, but it really hits home for me. As you can see, I'm pretty, jittery up here, and I've got a lot to say, but Psalms 46:10. Be still and know that I am God. I will be honored by every nation. I will be honored throughout the world. And he will be honored by me. And I will honor him in my relationships, in the way I talk, in the way I hold myself, in the way I dress. Those are things that I value as an individual. And I just think that it's important that I share that with you guys, because these are some things that have really helped me. So, as we come to a close, I hope that if you guys take anything from what I've said today, it's that you, one, if you're in a similar situation or have been through a situation like mine, that you know that you're not alone, that I've been there, I've experienced that. Maybe yours is more severe, maybe mine is more severe, I don't know. It doesn't matter. I've been there, and I know how you feel, and you can talk to me. I'm not just the lady that comes up here and sings every Wednesday night, okay? I'm a person, and I'd love to have a conversation with you and give you some tips on things that I did or didn't do right. And I also hope that me overcoming these challenges gives you the confidence to keep pushing through and overcoming your own challenges as an individual, because like I said earlier, we're all on our own life path. We're all walking our own walk with Jesus, and it is not linear for everybody, okay? And so, Noah asked if I would invite you guys to open your heart to the Lord. So if there are any of you here today that feel like you're not right with the Lord, or you don't know him, or you want to know him, or you feel like you know him, but you don't really know, we would love to pray with you after service. We'll be right here waiting for you. Any of you are welcome to come up. We really don't care. And we just want you guys to know that we're here for you. And this isn't just us coming to talk to you for a little bit and then you leave. We're here for you, okay? So let's go ahead and pray. And we'll open these altars up for you guys to come, okay? Jesus, we just thank you for this opportunity to gather together. And I thank you for all of these youth being willing to come and listen. I hope that everything I said today was from your heart. And I just thank you for giving me this testimony that I can share and still figure out. And I hope that these kids feel as though their testimonies can change somebody's life one day or impact them the way that Lisa impacted me. So Lord, we just thank you for today. We thank you for your love and your protection and your peace and your presence. And we just all collectively say that we love you, Jesus. In your name we pray.